at any given time, 90% of the ocean around South Africa is being explored for oil and gas extraction. This may provide jobs, boost our economy, and help mitigate the energy crisis. But what happens if there's a spill? Well, Wildtrust has developed a model to predict the behavior and trajectory of a spill. Let's find out more from Giles Fearon, an ocean modeler at the South African Environmental Observation Network. Giles, good afternoon. Welcome to today. Thank you very much for your time. Just first, an overriding question. I mean, when was the last time we had a big oil spill on our coast?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer that with confidence.
Yeah, I was thinking about it as well
Yes.
and wondering when was the last time. I remember some time ago there was some small oil spill and some penguins were caught in that on the southern
Yes.
Cape. But thankfully we haven't
That's
had
a very contentious issue. Yeah.
Yes, but thankfully we haven't had big ones now. Are you fearing that with the ongoing exploration the risks is now heightened, that we could have spills, hence you are doing this modeling?
Yeah, so I think most people are aware that there's definitely an increased interest in offshore oil exploration within the ocean space around South Africa, and particularly with respect to deep water drilling. So that's when you have, for those of you who don't know, it's a well all the way down on the seabed, thousands of meters down at the bottom, and you have a riser coming up to the top. And so if that riser breaks for some reason, you could have potentially, really disastrous consequences. And the most well-known example of this was in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico, what's called the Deepwater Horizon spill, which was really catastrophic. And so this has prompted an NGO called Wildtrust to initialize this project. And so they brought me on as an independent consultant as part of an international team to develop the model. Yeah.
So what does the model look like? What will the model do? In fact, will it be bringing up a number of scenarios based on risks and impacts?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll very briefly just trying to describe what the model is. So at the heart of it is an ocean model. And so an ocean model, it's essentially a computer program which solves a set of mathematical equations which tries to predict how the ocean changes in time. And in particular, we're interested in the ocean currents because that's what's transporting the oil. So in an oil model, we release oil, digitally speaking, into the model, and it gets transported by the currents. It rises to the surface, or most of it gets to the surface, and then it can evaporate. The winds can transport it. Physical changes happen. And what we do in the model is try and predict things like, what is the surface thickness going to be from a spill like this? How much oil ends up on the beaches? And then trying to relate those values to ecological impacts.
Yeah, is this the first of its type, or you've been developing this over time, and there are others that exist?
Well, no, it's not really the first of its type. So it's important to note that the oil and gas industry is required to carry out EIAs as part of the applications for doing these drilling works, and as part of those EIAs, there are oil spill models which are required to be done. I think the issue comes in that there's so many assumptions which need to be made in an oil spill model. I mean, by definition, we don't even know what's down there until the exploration well is drilled. So there's big uncertainties, and different people running different models will come to different conclusions, different outputs. So this is confusing, and I empathize with the decision makers. And so what I think the strength of the study is we're providing just an objective and independent assessment, away from industry. I'm not an environmental activist either. I'm a scientist. So we're providing something that's independent, and we can say, here are our assumptions, these are the results, and hopefully, it's going to be useful for decision makers going forward.
Yeah, from what you've just said, or part of what you just said, makes me think it must be very hard to provide realistic scenarios for future assessments.
It is. So this is one of the major things and major differences from one study to the next. What kind of scenario do you model? How much volume of oil do you release? So our approach, is in the light of or in the face of uncertainty, we do need to be conservative. In these kinds of things, we're modeling something which admittedly has quite a low probability of happening. Exactly what that probability is, nobody knows. It's just kind of this looming thing, maybe something could
Yeah.
happen. And what we're doing is saying, all right, what's kind of a reasonable sort of maximum probable spill, and we'll model that. And so that should be kind of the sort of the baseline. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be scary though if your model looks at the worst case possible scenario. Is this an ongoing thing? I mean, you're going to have to keep on going and tweaking this model.
Yeah, we can always make improvements. Definitely. The next step, which is happening right now as part of Wildtrust, is they're using the results of the oil spill model to carry out some more detailed environmental impact assessments, where they try and link the model results with the actual habitats around our coastlines and our oceans, and say, okay, what's going to be impacted, what could potentially. So that's happening, and yeah, I mean, I'm always. That's my job, I'm really fascinated by modeling and the technical aspects, and always want to improve it. And there are aspects we can improve, and yeah, we'll improve into the future.
I mean, you as a non-profit, I mean, Wildtrust is a non-profit, and you're doing this work, I guess, to help people who are planning. Who could use this? I mean, you are independent. Is it the Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy, for example? Is it oil drilling companies and the environmental groups who are opposed to such drilling?
I think all of the above. Our study. I mean, if you find our modeling study, it doesn't have any hard stance on any. It's not like trying to make any statement other than these are assumptions and these are our results. And the intention, I think, I'm hoping it's going to be useful for decision makers. So in the Department of Transport, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries, Environmental impact, but practitioners might be useful. And I'd welcome feedback as well, as an ongoing thing. And if we can develop into some sort of reference that's useful across the board, I think that would be a great thing. And and just useful. And I think it's healthy to have just kind of an independent look on these kinds of things.
Yeah. When can people interact with your model?
I think probably the easiest way to find us is if you go to the handle @OceanImpactSA, and so that's on. You can follow that on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. So that's connected to Wildtrust, and you'll be able to find connections there.
Can you repeat that? At Ocean Impact SA.
It's @OceanImpactSA.
Ocean Impact SA. Thank you very much, Giles, and good luck. Thank you very much. That's Giles Fearon, an ocean modeler at the South African Environmental Observation Network, helping Wildtrust, working together with Wildtrust, coming up with a new model to predict all kinds of scenarios from oil spills. I mean, there's a lot of drilling for oil and gas exploration that's happening in South Africa's oceans.